Welcome back, Wolfpack. Vrolas here, and this is how to use Uxie, the Being of Knowledge. So with those super tanky stats, wait a second, Uxie's that tanky and we don't see it that much? Huh, well I'm starting to feel like this Pokemon might already be a little overlooked, because those are some very tanky stats, which means you have a lot of setup potential, and you can do a bit of craziness, so we might want to keep an eye on that. 130 on defense and special defense with 75 on the hit points is pretty stupid tanky. That 75 hit points, not insane, but with a 130 defense is very insane, and that is going to be something pretty crazy. Also 95 speed. 95 speed isn't going to be that great for a sweeper Pokemon, but as a tank, now we're starting to compete with other pseudo-sweeper Pokemon, and we outspeed a lot of other tanks and setup Pokemon and status and whatnot. So we're going to have a huge edge over a lot of Pokemon, and I think that that is going to be something to start looking at. Look at its typing, it's a psychic typing. Now from a defensive aspect, could be worse, that we only have 3 weaknesses, and fortunately they aren't the most common. That with Dark you might have to worry about knockoff, Ghost, people don't run Shadow Ball because of Dark Pulse and Dark moves instead, and Bug isn't too insanely popular to begin with because it doesn't have like a great amount of coverage, so we're looking okay from a defensive standpoint, but we only have 2 resistances, so it's not like we're going to be able to come in and heavily wall things, but we still are tanky enough to make something count. Look at its immunity, it's going to be ground because of that levitate ability, so you remove the levitate ability and then you have a neutral hit on ground. Hopping into Pokemon Showdown, I think Uxie is going to be an incredible setup Pokemon depending on what your team needs. That if we look at the stats right here, Calm Nature means we can become a huge special defense tank, or we can just go with a Bold Nature and become a huge defensive tank. It's really, like I said, what your team needs. Do you need a Pokemon that's going to be a physical wall? Do you need a special wall? Or you just need a mixed Pokemon wall, that way you can kind of lead very consistently. And with that, I was thinking something around 100 and 156 would work out pretty well. Just a little bit more on the defenses, but enough special defense to survive some solid hits. With this, it means that you're just going to be able to set up a Stealth Rock, go for knockoff to remove an item, then you can switch out into another safe switch in Pokemon, and get a lot of work done. But here's the thing, Magic Coat. Uxie gets access to Magic Coat, and I feel it's actually one of the most overlooked moves in the game for leads. That if you actually understand what your opponent's going for, that if they're trying to taunt you because they know that you're a setup Pokemon, or if they're trying to go for Toxic or their own Stealth Rocks, Magic Coat can really change the game in that way. That you Magic Coat, you pretty much nullify their turn, they might taunt themselves and force the switch, and then that means you can just go for your setup with Stealth Rocks knockoff, and if you still have some health left, you might as well just switch out, come in, knock off a different Pokemon later once as a revenge. So I think that Uxie does have a lot of diversity and utility in this that is very overlooked. I mean, it is a super tanky Pokemon, and that's what we're going to compare here with Rotom Wash. Now, I haven't used Uxie. I don't think I've seen too many Uxie, maybe one in battle. But a lot of people have seen Rotom. Now, we just got done with our Rotom series, and we know that Rotom is a very used Pokemon. So let's keep an eye on these stats for tankiness. 304, 296, 294. Uxie is going to be 320, 296, 296, with only 116 hit point investment. So this is where things start getting really interesting with Uxie. That with hardly any defensive investment, any investment in the hit points, we're still going to be more powerful than Rotom. Even with like no investment, we're going to be on par with the Rotom. So 52 EVs on the hit points is what it takes to be as tanky as a balanced Rotom. So we just add to that, we get tankier, and then that still lets us do a lot of really interesting things. You guys might be wondering why timid 140 EVs and like special attack investment. It's just an option that you can still go full tank and become grossly tankier than a Rotom, or just kind of do whatever. With this, it's going to let you outspeed base 80 speed Pokemon while retaining a lot of your tankiness. Or if you want to get more specific, we can look at Pokemon like Heatran. Not all base 80 speed Pokemon are going to be a speedy nature with max speed investment, but Heatran might be one of the Pokemon that you'll see from time to time carry timid. That way it gets the outspeeds against other tanks and it blows them up with its high special attack. So we're aiming for a 141 at level 50 or a 278 at level 100. As you may notice, those aren't evenly in half, which is why we're going to have to play around. Depending on the metagame, it is going to change. So if we want to just beat out 278, that's going to be pretty simple. We just go down here, that's going to be 279, boom, 112 EVs. But if we go down to level 50, that is actually going to tie us with that 141. That Heatran at level 50 had the 141, so if you guys check this out, that's not going to be better at level 50, so if we are playing level 50 metagame, we just have to add to it, and now we're at 143, and we're going to be good to go. So then we can put the rest into hit points. So if we're outspeeding just Heatran, then we're just going to find this, and it's going to work out pretty well, while also still being very tanky and getting the most out of our special attack. If we don't want to gain special attack, then that's just fine. We go for huge amounts of defensive investment. I would say just put the rest into hit points and defense, because we are going to be using Calm Mind with a substitute set. So with substitute Calm Mind, we just pretty much set up our sub, we don't get toxic, we don't have any kind of status happen to us, and then we go for Calm Mind. Calm Mind's going to boost our special defense and our special attack, and then we just have Psyshock for damage and Giga Drain for sustain. Now Psyshock is an option. You can go with Psychic, but you can get specially walled by a Pokemon like Chansey. Giga Drain is an option. It is going to be less damage and less coverage than a lot of other moves that you can use, but it is going to recover health, so that with leftovers, say you get +2 Calm Minds before you start taking serious damage, go for Giga Drain, you get a little bit of health back, somewhere around, a tenth of your health back from the damage, maybe even more. I don't know how much damage you're going to be doing with a +2 Calm Mind Giga Drain. Probably not going to be too much, but in a neutral situation, you might get some health back. That plus leftovers could keep you alive, so as you get more Calm Minds, Giga Drain becomes a main tool for sustain, and that could be something to consider. But if we do go to PokemonDB.net, your best bet for just purely coverage, so if you're running already high special attack, not worried about sustain, you just want to set up with your Calm Minds and bust down some tanks, then you run Psychic Electric. 22 not very effective hits, 261 super effective hits. If we have Grass, it's not going to be as good, 247 and 66, and if we run Dark, it's still not going to be as good. No other two combination that Uxie gets is going to be better. Like if it got Ice Beam or Hidden Power Ice, maybe it would be better, but then let's just worry about Psychic and Electric for coverage. It's the easiest way to do it with Thunderbolt, and it doesn't get too messy, and we don't have to worry about extreme damage calculation. So with that, we can run something like this, we can run the Thunderbolt, and that's why I wanted to bring up the case with speed. On this Uxie, you can also change things around for speed. Do you want to outspeed base 80 setup Pokemon, base 70 setup Pokemon? You can do that by just tweaking around like whatever defensiveness you want and then adding speed into it. And then you just go on Pokemon Showdown, you look up another Pokemon. So I don't know a Pokemon that has base 70 Bisharp. So while Bisharp isn't generally going to be elite or something, we're just looking at it for the base stats. So then we can do something like max speed investment, and then we're looking at a 262 range. Do consider level 50 if you're playing in the battle spot. But then we just go, alright, we take a couple more points, we go into this, and now we're going to outspeed base 70 Pokemon, which you can look that up on any kind of resource like Bulbapedia or Cerebi to find out what base 70 Pokemon are going to do for you. And that's kind of it with just the understanding of Uxie. But Uxie is also still very powerful because it gets Weather. So what I was thinking is Rain Dance, Knock Off, Magic Coat, and then some other move like Helping Hand. If you want to run it in doubles, this is going to be a really awesome double set because you're going to be so tanky that you're not going to be able to get knocked out easily, and then you can also use Magic Coat. Magic Coat's going to keep you safe from a taunt, so you use Rain Dance, you set the Rain, you use Knock Off to remove items, you use Helping Hand to blow up your opponent, and Rain is still in effect. So this with some kind of Swift Swim could be devastating for your opponent. You're going to be bouncing back status, and you're also going to be boosting damage while removing items. I feel there's a lot of untapped potential with Uxie. Now it also does get Sandstorm, and it also does get Sunny Day. So if you want to run a Sun team or some kind of Sands team, Chlorophyll, Sand Rush, maybe even going for the Evasion with Sand Veil. You can run something like that, play a lot of Disruption, play really trickly, and still have a lot of tankiness on your side just to get the setup going, and maybe a Helping Hand before you go down. So I feel that there's a lot of untapped potential for doubles. While Uxie is less tanky than a Cresselia, does bring a lot of interesting utility to it. That we saw in the 2015 World Championship Senior Division Champion team, he ran skill swap. So I mean, you can skill swap Levitate onto your Heatran to keep it safe from your own Earthquake later. You can do something interesting like that. There's a lot of really big outplays you can make with skill swap. So Uxie can also do the same thing. Now Cresselia is going to have sustain, so it does edge out in that way. But if you look for these different opportunities that Uxie can set up, or you just want to bring a Pokemon no one knows what it's going to do, Uxie can be the Pokemon for that. And it also has a couple of other interesting things. Can use Heal Bell, can use Psych Up, can use Memento. Also gets Roleplay. So if you want to build a strategy around roleplay, say you have a Pokemon on your side of the field with a really good ability, roleplay that, use that to your advantage for the rest of it. This isn't a moveset right here. I will make that clear. This right here is not any kind of moveset. These are just other pieces that you can incorporate into other movesets. So if we go over to Bulbapedia, we get to see that through Move Tutor, we get a whole bunch of moves, and we also have other moves that are really good to use. We can incorporate Yawn. Then in the setup set, use Yawn, they either switch out, and then you get a free Stealth Rocks, they don't switch out, and then you get even more setup by removing items, switching into a setup Pokemon. So you can do a lot of really cool things with Yawn as well, and that's just kind of the potential that Uxie has. A lot of really disruptive things that it can do in doubles, pay attention to that, and some very consistent setup in singles. So I feel that Uxie might be a hidden OP Pokemon. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's how you use Uxie, and I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you for watching.